Greetings and happy holidays to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the second installment of the Law Firm Financial Fitness Series. Today's course is going to be managing your law firm like a CEO, and we have our guest speaker, Mickey Deming from Kahuna Accounting. Mickey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, last week I know we talked a lot about the basics of accounting and bookkeeping and all of those principles that really need to be taken care of on a monthly basis. And this second session really starts to dig into the fun stuff, right? Like the reports that change, for me, the mindset of instead of looking at accounting as money in, money out, it's shifting that mindset to harnessing the meaning behind the numbers. And I really like listening to your presentations because you're one of the few people that acknowledges that accounting can be kind of difficult to get excited about it. But when you flip it that way and you see what these reports can mean for your business and for your family and for your freedom,
right?
Because running a business like a CEO affords you freedom. It's a lot of responsibility, but it has its benefits. So, you do a great job of really explaining how to go through that transition.
But I love how you are not afraid to say this will be fun when we're talking about accounting and be honest about it. So I always feel like I have to apologize for the first 5 minutes of a presentation just to have people not think it's gonna be the worst thing in the world.
No, and that just comes from, honestly, my own personal experience. I'm just as much of a solopreneur as all of the solos and small firms managing partners that we have in our audience today. I'm in the throes right now of onboarding my first couple staff members, really getting my hands around my numbers and looking at 2018, let's do this right and save for retirement and do, checkbox all those things that don't seem so sexy, but right. When you get them in place, I've already within the last couple months feel like a totally different person, and I'm more present, with my family. I'm not distracted worrying about AR and other stuff too. So.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And you've been exposed to enough of these sessions that you've thought about it. That's what I was thinking is people that are struggling with it, I know it's not fun to talk about, but really when I bring that up, I'm not trying to say, you're dumb for being in this situation. A lot of people are dealt a pretty bad hand with how they get started, and it kind of makes sense why that happens. And so figuring out how to prioritize it and make it valuable is just something to be learned, and you've picked it up just from all the different things you've been around.
Oh yeah, and so today, for everybody who's joining us, I see we've got a bunch of people trickling in. That's absolutely it. Let's lay all cards out on the table. This is a safe place. I'll raise my hand and say, yes, I'm guilty of commingling funds when I started my business, because you're just trying to grow so fast. You're putting stuff on personal credit cards, and you're just running, and you're doing your meetings over the phone out of your house. And so first session was all about cleaning that up and doing bookkeeping properly and separating everything the way that it needs to be, getting monthly reports going. And then today we're diving into financial reports and running it like a CEO so that you can get all the benefits out of it. So I think we're just about ready. We've got a few people still trickling in, but let's go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to turn this over to you, and we'll jump in.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. I was hoping we could just talk back and forth and kind of talk about your bookkeeping for the whole session, but I guess I'll.
Yeah.
We'll wait on that for another time.
Traumatic.
So this is part 2, and I know some of the people on here were on the first one, some are not. So some of the pieces from the initial session that was about some of the boring and painful things, I'll recap really, really quickly. But the goal today is really about looking forward and getting incredible value from your financial system. It's going to be a aspirational session because I want everybody to really look differently at how they think about accounting. And so just to kind of set the stage on what the goal is for this session, what I want to have happen is I want you to see a accounting system that you don't hate and actually helps you grow your law firm and achieve your goals. And so for most people, and I have these conversations all the time, when you talk about accounting and bookkeeping with law firms, and it's not just lawyers, it's really any business owner, as Chelsea kind of said before, we're all in the same boat. And this concept of accounting and bookkeeping is such a thing we want to avoid and really not talk about if at all possible. And it's such a painful thing and such a brutal process that we shut down, we don't like it, and it has nothing to do with any of our goals or the things that we want to achieve in our firm. And so the goal today is to change that. And the way to change it is to go into, I'm going to skip that for a second. The way to change it is to fix two key things. The reason why we hate accounting is, first of all, because it's a waste of time. Like, we're putting time into something that we really don't get anything out of. And we all have a very limited amount of time. And when you're running your own law firm, your time is even more at a premium because there's already too many things to do. And so when accounting, when you think about it, it's something that is grabbing for that time. It's asking for your time. It's requiring you to put in more time that you already don't have. And you're putting in time for, number two, something that is not helping you get to where you want to go. And so if I'm going to use my time, which is very valuable, I want to make sure that I'm spending it on something that is driving towards what I want in life, what my goals are. And so when we look at accounting, it really doesn't achieve either of these two things. It's a waste of time, and it's not helping get to what we want. So no wonder we hate it. And so the goal today is to eliminate that waste of time, which is more what I covered in the first section, how to automate everything, put it on autopilot, make your systems work together, have people in the right roles, so it's not a waste of time. But then today what we're going to talk about is how to take your financial system and your accounting system and use it to help you get what you want. And so for everyone on this webinar, that's something different. You know, when you started your firm, you wanted something. You had a goal in mind. You had a thought in mind. Your numbers are going to be a way to make sure you get to that. And that's what we're going to get into in depth today. So let me introduce myself. I tried to switch this picture out, but it was too late. I was going to put in my my family at the Christmas tree because I don't know, I'm like really in a good mood. I'm glad Chelsea said Happy Holidays at the beginning because I am like really giddy like at Christmas time. So this is me and the family. I should have put the Christmas tree up. Chelsea, tell me the truth. Like in Miami, what is Christmas like? Is it real Christmas or is it just like fake?
It's really like interesting. No, I mean, like, you'd be amazed. All of my neighbors have, you know, got right out, like put the lights up on their, you know, around their palm trees, and we have like Christmas carnivals down here, which is really interesting. And like Christmas fairs and like a Santa traveling amusement park. Like, so, you know, it's, people are just as much in the Christmas spirit. And I have to admit, stand in line at Home Goods for like an hour and a half last week getting Christmas stuff. So good. It is, it's just as much in full swing down here as it is everywhere else. It's negative, minus the snow. Or
it's a 22-degree wind chill here. So
I'm very sorry.
That's how you do it. For real, but I was in, I think I said this last time, but like in October, I was in Phoenix, and it was 97 degrees, and I was in a Starbucks, and it was all talking about like fall and stuff like that, and it just felt weird. So anyway, introducing myself, I'm excited about this Christmas time, and this will be an evergreen webinar, so people watch this in June and be like, what are they talking about? But I am passionate about this subject, and because I've talked to so many law firms about it, and I see that it's difficult and it's painful, and I want to reiterate what I said before, like that these challenges are so common, and a lot of times law firms are not dealt a good hand. And so what I've done, I work with Kahuna Accounting, and so Kahuna Accounting, we do bookkeeping and accounting for small law firms all over the country, and we started out partnering with Clio, helping their users to integrate Clio with accounting and get good bookkeeping, and it's kind of expanded out from there to the point where we are almost primarily focusing on working with law firms. And so over the years, we've had thousands of conversations with attorneys who are dealing with the exact same things over and over again. And so everything I'm sharing in these presentations is just true examples, is from not from me being an expert, it's from literally just sharing with you what I've seen, what people have gone through on the difficult side, and then what people have gone through on the positive side. And so that's what we're going to do today, is to share those stories and work through solving these problems of why we hate accounting. And so there's really going to be 3 parts to this, and we're going to spend most of our time in part 2, but we're going to have to kind of zoom through part 1 also, because all 3 of these things work together. And so the first thing we're going to get into is your financial foundation. And the reason why we're going to go into that, and if you really want depth on that, you should watch the first session that we did, that Chelsea and I did together, because it was like a full hour on the boring stuff. But the reason I want to go through it a little bit today really fast is because everything that I talk about in section 2 and section 3 is completely useless, completely meaningless, unless you have that foundation in place. Because what we're going to do in number 1 is talk about how to get the data to where it needs to go, how to get your reports, and how to get you, the attorney, out of the day-to-day. So if those things don't happen, if your financials are 3 months behind, if you're wasting a bunch of time on data entry, and your financial statements are not accurate, then you can't do anything beyond that. You can't then take that and project it forward and create a model to get what you want. It's not going to happen. And you're not going to be able to have vision and be the CEO of your firm if you're stuck in the day-to-day. And so we have to get into that. Then we're going to go into section 2, and we're going to talk about how to build a model, how to build a financial system that calibrates toward the goals that you have, toward getting what you want, and being the type of law firm that you imagined when you started. And then part 3 will be about the title of this and being the CEO of your firm. What does that look like? What are your day-to-day actions from a financial perspective look like? What are the things that you should have? And what is the mental approach you should have to this whole financial system? So these are the 3 parts we're going to go into today. And like I said, most of our time will be spent in section 2. So first, we're going to get into the foundation, setting that perfect financial system for your law firm. And in order to do that, we have to talk through why this is such a challenge. I said it before, but it's so common, and it's actually so rare for a law firm to have a good bookkeeping system, which is the most basic piece of this whole thing. And like I said to Chelsea, the reason why it happens is it makes a lot of sense. I feel like law firms starting their own solo practice are dealt a very bad hand in terms of what they have learned either in law school or from whoever they've talked to about getting started, or bar associations, and then the different tools they start with. It's almost impossible that you're going to have a good bookkeeping system from day one. And so where it breaks down is in 3 different places: with tools that don't work together, with roles and not having people in the right places doing what they need to be doing, and expectations challenge, where you think bookkeeping is supposed to be one thing, but it really is completely different. So let's break that down just for a second, because this is the most common issue, and I'm having this conversation every single day, and it's something that, in order to get to where we want to go, we have to solve this issue. Otherwise, it's all just going to be a headache, and we're going to hate accounting like we already do. So this is what happens when you're in a small law firm. You have so many different systems that you need to run your firm, especially from a practice management and a financial perspective. Like, you're always going to have a practice management system and a time and billing system. Sometimes those are one, sometimes there's 2 different things. But you're going to have that to manage your clients, to get bills out, to work with them. You're going to have another system that's accepting payments. So sometimes you have, ACH wire transfers to your bank. Sometimes you're going to have credit card. You're going to accept credit cards. Sometimes you're going to deposit checks, but you have to have a system to collect payments. Then you have your bank accounts, of course, So you have your trust account, your operating account, and those, keep track of your money. Where's the money going? Where is it currently? Where's our cash flow? Then you have accounting software. So the practice management doesn't do accounting, your full general ledger and your operating account. So then you have to migrate that data over to accounting and keep track of it. And then you also have to have a payroll system to pay your employees and calculate the payroll tax, benefits, and all that good stuff. And so when you have all these different systems, and sometimes there's overlap, sometimes two things can be in one, but in general, these are going to be 4 to 5 different things that all need to interact with each other. And so when it comes to the day-to-day bookkeeping, the foundational level bookkeeping, most law firms, and I'm talking like 99%, these things aren't working together, and these things aren't even saying the same thing. They're all saying different stories about where the money is, who owes what, how much money do I have, and it becomes this huge headache, and it's impossible to really navigate where does the firm currently stand. Then the other problem is, and it makes perfect sense, is like when you get started, your first priority is not to put in this foundation to make sure everything flows together properly. And so you, as the attorney, are going to go out and try to get clients, try to get momentum, try to get started, and that's what you have to do to survive and to make this firm something viable and to get it off the ground. Problem is, when you start that way and then you grow and then you build clients, you build revenue, everything's great, but then some year you're going to get to tax time and be like, oh, shoot, I never put in these systems and they're all disjointed and not working together and saying different things, and somehow I have to make sense of it to get taxes done and to understand what's really going on financially in the business. So we never get started properly. We have all these different systems that don't work together, and then on top of that, we have problems with roles and speaking different languages. So what happens is you have to then have someone on your team, someone you're responsible for, to organize all that information, to categorize all the transactions that happen in the business, and to report on that, either for your own knowledge of what's going on with the firm, or at a minimum, to be able to stay compliant, to report on what's going on with your trust account, and to get your taxes done. And so you try to have someone do that. And usually the progression looks something like this, where the attorney will do it themselves, then they'll kind of outgrow that or not have enough time for that, and then their spouse will do it because that's the person they trust, and they just need someone to deal with the bookkeeping. Then maybe a paralegal, because we're already kind of paying them and they're part of the team, so they can handle bookkeeping, or an office assistant, or eventually you finally bring on a part-time bookkeeper. It's kind of this progression that happens. Problem is, none of these people have accounting and bookkeeping as their sole focus. None of these people have familiarity with, even when you challenges with roles, because this is not someone's their main focus and their main skill set. And so what happens here is, this is my favorite slide from last week, so I had to keep it in this time. This is the slide of misery. I was going to put Debbie Downer's picture on this, but I didn't do it. But this is the slide that is the recap of all the problems. So systems don't work together. You have the wrong people in the wrong roles. You're wasting time. The numbers are meaningless, and really everyone is miserable. So this is why we hate accounting, is because this is what's going on, and this is kind of where everyone is stuck, and they don't get any value. And so what happens when this is your accounting system, or this is the experience that you've had with accounting, the natural reaction is to just avoid it at all costs, or to just like, I want it to go away, I want it to someone else to deal with it, I want to just stay out of my mind, out of sight, out of mind, and just get my taxes done and get it over with, and let me focus on my law firm. So the problem with that mindset is, number one, you never understand what's going on with the firm. Number two, you're probably losing a lot of money, which we're going to show you a little bit today, but even more in the next session where we talk about cash flow. And number three is you're really never going to get to the point where you can use data and use metrics to actually get to where you want to go in your law firm. So this is how we simplify that, and I'm going to be really fast here and just talk about two sections of this simple financial system as we finish out the foundation. to do this right, the first thing you have to do is put bookkeeping and data entry on autopilot. And so you need to work with someone who understands all those different systems. You need to have an accounting software as the hub for your financial data. So we at Kahuna will use QuickBooks Online or Xero, which both are great, because what those will do is integrate with your practice management system, integrate with your payment system, integrate with your bank accounts, integrate with your payroll, and we will pull it all together. And so what can happen is it eliminates all data entry, and you have one place where you're making sure every single thing gets matched up and everything is accurate, and then you as the attorney, it flips your whole focus. So the way to put bookkeeping data entry on autopilot is for the people in the firm, the attorneys, the paralegals, the office managers, to focus on getting their bills out and making the payments that they need to make. You focus on that, and you focus on keeping your practice management up to date, and then the accounting bookkeeping team will connect to your billing system, your bank accounts, just like I said, and then reconciling in real time. So we talked about it last week. This is like doing your dishes. If you do the dishes regularly, you do them daily, dishes aren't really a big deal. If you let them pile up for 3 months, then the whole doing dishes process becomes this whole other situation. So to do it regularly in real time makes this whole thing easy. And to do it, you have to have a bookkeeper that can confidently navigate all these systems and understand trust accounting and everything that is specific to your law firm. And most law firms don't have this, and accounting is a huge headache. Second piece of the foundation, so once you have that happening, bookkeeping and data entry on autopilot, it's off your plate as the attorney. You should have your reports on demand. And so at a bare minimum, this is what your foundation should look like. You should have it on autopilot. You should be focusing on your clients, growing your firm, and the numbers should be there for you at the click of a button. So when you get to tax time, which the end of the year is coming up, most people dread this because it's a terrible process. You have to go back through and work through your year. When you have this foundation in place, everything is simple. And the end of the year is just like any other month, and you can actually start to get value from your numbers. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But this is the minimum. This is the foundation and where this all begins. And I want to reiterate this point because I covered this really, really fast. But this foundation is simple, and it can be put on autopilot when you have the right roles and the right connected systems. And unless you have it, everything I'm going to say from now on is completely pointless unless you have this. So if you are not having reconciliations, you don't have your data entry and things on autopilot, it's not going to happen, and your numbers are just going to be meaningless, and you're always going to hate your accounting system. And so this is really where it starts, and that's why, kind of like we were saying before, like this is painful, but we kind of have to embrace the pain because there's no way to avoid it. You know, and if you just avoid it, it's going to cost you a lot just in terms of getting to where you want to go and really driving the profitability in the law firm. So, with that said, we are outside of the pain portion of our presentation today, and now we're going to start looking ahead. And more specifically, we're going to look at using numbers to get what we want in our firm, in the law firm, which I think is kind of exciting. Kind of like Chelsea said, we can actually make it fun. So here is the next step. So in this simple financial system, the foundation components are number 1 and number 2, bookkeeping and data entry on autopilot, and reports on demand. From there, what we need to do is start to build a financial model to getting what we want. And the first step in that is, I think, the most important, because otherwise anything we do with modeling or with financials are not going to matter. So the first step is to have a clearly defined position and destination. So you think of it like a map. So if I wanted to go see Miami because it's too cold here in the Midwest, the first thing I have to do is not identify where Miami is. The first thing I have to do is identify where I am currently. So where I am currently is going to be the first thing that Google Maps is going to find, so then it knows where to calibrate to where I want to go. then I want to identify what's that destination, where do I want to go, and then once I have where I am and where I want to be, then it's just as simple as building a roadmap to getting there. So it may be a long way, but I can at least build the map and know where I need to go. And so we're going to unpack that a little deeper to help you kind of think this way in your firm. Because I think one reason I really, really like the end of the year is not only because I love Christmas time and all that good stuff, but also I think I struggle with this as much as anybody. And I know a lot of small firm lawyers struggle with it like at a high level, is we're so busy and we're so stuck in the day-to-day that we rarely take time to look at the big picture. And looking at the big picture, there's a lot to it. There's looking at, what do I really want? Why did I start this in the first place? It's looking at where are things currently in the firm, and to do that not from a tactical day-to-day level that we're stuck in all the time, but to actually zoom out and look at it objectively. And so in order for us to build a financial model to getting what we want, we have to begin with the end in mind. And for the purposes of this, and as we're looking at the new year, I'm thinking in terms of like 12 months down the road. So for 2018, where do we want to be at the end of 2018? And to zoom out and actually think about that. Like, what would I want? Where would I want things to be, just even in my own life? And to really just think big about that. And it's good to just kind of go through an exercise at the end of the year and just think about that. And at this point, I don't even want you to think about the numbers, but just think, like, what do you want? What would a successful 2018 look like? And to start by defining that. Because like we said last week, I know a lot of you will say, like, I'm not a numbers person. I don't like the numbers, or I shut down the numbers. But what we're really doing here at this section of this teaching is to build our scoreboard. And so when you have the bookkeeping on autopilot, you have a destination of where you're wanting to go. What we're going to do is really set a goal and then keep track of whether or not we're hitting the goal. But in order to have a scoreboard, you have to define what is winning. What does winning look like, so that I can know whether or not I'm on track or off track. So you begin with the end in mind and know where you're going, but like I said before, the first thing you're going to do when you build a map is identify where you are currently. And this is, I guess, probably the most painful part here, is you have to confront your financial reality. You have to understand where you are now. You have to do it in a place of no emotion, and you have to confront the brutal facts and to just think, like, what is the current status of this firm? Where is it at in terms of putting money into my pocket? Where's that in terms of the growth that I've been looking for? To just really objectively break out where things stand. And when you have your financial foundation in place, that's a good starting point. Because when you have that, you have reports on demand. You can at least see a profit and loss statement. Even if it's not at a huge level of detail, you can see where's the money going out, where's the money coming in, where do things currently stand. And I think a lot of us, we don't really want to confront these brutal facts, and we don't really want to have accountability and facing reality of what's going on. We'd rather just keep moving and not really think about it. But as we're going to talk about here, this accountability is really the key to getting what we want, because if you just keep moving forward, there's no guarantees you're going to end up in a place that you're very happy with. And so I put this quote in here that I think is a perfect explanation of that. It's from Stephen Covey from The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But he said, it's incredibly easy to get caught up in an activity trap in the busyness of life, to work harder and harder at climbing the ladder of success, only to discover it's leaning against the wrong wall. So that sounds kind of like, personal development type of stuff. But what we're really talking about here is building a law firm that you want and getting what you want from your firm. And if what you're doing is just kind of repeating the day after day after day, year after year after year, you're going to be really, really busy. You're going to be working really, really hard. But are you actually getting anywhere? Or are you actually getting closer to where you wanted to go when you started? And you don't know if you're not tracking that, or you're not building up a system for getting you there. And so this quote is something we should all think about, especially at the end of the year, to think, like, am I closer to where I wanted to be? last year or this year versus last year. And I had a conversation recently with someone who's like grown like crazy. They've tripled their revenue, and it's like all exciting. Only problem is he's not taking any more money home because he's tripled his revenue, but everything else is tripled as well. Tripled the headache, tripled the expense, triple the complexity in his life. So is that a good thing? Probably not. And so as long as you're just going, you're not really necessarily going to get anywhere closer to where you want to go. And so that's why I titled this section Drive, because it's a great metaphor for being in control. Like we all, like as a business owner, you are the owner. You're the one that controls it. You're the one who makes calls the shots and determines where it's going. Unfortunately, a lot of us are really more like passengers in our own businesses, and we're being driven by clients, by expenses, by challenges, by kind of the firm that takes on a life of its own, and we're just along for the ride. And we're just drifting along, doing activities, doing things, working hard, but not necessarily getting anywhere closer to where we want to go. And so our goal here is to drive and to take control. The other metaphor here is when you're driving, you're spending most of your time looking forward. You're looking at where you're going. And I think for most of us with accounting, you think about what is accounting. For 99% of people, accounting is looking backwards. It's looking back at what has happened and, you know, was I out of bounds here? Did this go the way it should have or not? Or did this transaction get moved here and things like that? And so it's always looking backwards. And so if you're driving and you're always looking in the rearview mirror, it's probably dangerous, first of all. But second of all, it's not going to be the best way to see where you're going and to move yourself forward. So I really like to think of it in this metaphor of driving to make sure you get what you want. And so going back to our perfect financial system, clearly define position and destination. Where are you now and where you want to be? And what we're going to do is make that a numbers game. And so when you're going through your firm and you're taking this, and there's not enough time to do it right now, but you should actually break out time and do this exercise. Where are you now from an objective point of view, and where do you want to be? What's the difference between where you are and where you want to be, and what's stopping you from being there? And to look at what you're doing day to day. Is your daily activity moving you closer to where you want to be? Because I think if we evaluate what we're doing day to day, a lot of times it's not even helping us get to where we want to go. And so if we really want to get there, it's a great time to make changes. And so I'm throwing this in here as a bonus tip, but you can really use this process for anything. And so it's definitely true for building your business, but it's true in your life. Like if there's anything that you're wanting and you're feeling short on, go through this exercise. Think about, you know, where is that destination? You know, I need to have Christmas gifts for my family, and so that's where I want to be, they're all bought and wrapped. Where am I now? I haven't bought anything yet. So what is the gap there? What activity needs to happen for me to get where I want to go so I don't have problems later? Go through this exercise. It'll help you have a successful business, and it'll help you just be clear about what you're doing rather than just drifting day by day by day by day and not really ending up anywhere with intentionality. So then we got to put numbers to this. So the first step after you have the foundation is to get clear on where you are, where you want to be, and now we're going to get into some of the numbers and some of the reports that you should have and that are going to help you actually get there. And so this is going to be a little bit more in depth, but it's also going to be simplified. So I'm not going to be able to give you something that you can take and use right away because everyone's business is different, but I'm going to talk through what I've seen people do and what works and how you can quite easily apply this to a business and get what you want. So the first thing you do, you've identified where you are, identify where you're going. And the way we do that is, especially as we're heading into the end of the year, is to look at a 12-month budget and forecast. And so the best way to do that, and because a lot of people will say, okay, I want to do a 12-month budget and forecast. I want to kind of start from scratch and build out the exact year that I want to have happen. How much revenue, how much expense, and what's going to happen, and those are going to be my goals, and I'm going to map those out in a spreadsheet or in an accounting system and try to make that happen. Problem with that approach is, first of all, almost no one is going to follow through on that and put it together because there's so much data, and second of all, the data is probably going to be meaningless because it's not working from reality. What we recommend as a starting point is to project out from the past. So hopefully you have some sort of financial tracking for what's been happening in 2017. And even if it's like really basic and not a lot of detail, you should at least know month by month what your revenue and expense has been, and you should have your revenue and expense broken out. So you can start there and say, this is what happened in 2017, and then it's very simple to do in an accounting system, but to take that and project it forward. And so it's basically saying if 2017 were to repeat itself, this is what 2018 would look like and where I would be. Now that's not super helpful, but what it does is give you a starting point. It at least gives you real data, real numbers to look at, and so you can analyze your month over month and start to think like, well, in March, this is what happened last year, but what if I ran this type of marketing campaign? What if I did this? You can start to play with scenarios to make things different. The other thing you can do that's kind of the next evolution from there is not just kind of repeat the year, but then to look at trends. And so if you're able to see that your revenue has grown month over month, like the second half of the year was stronger than the first half, then you can start from December and move it forward and just say, okay, if I were to continue trending like I was for the 12 months of this year, then what does 2018 look like? And that may give you a better picture. Now, some businesses have seasonality that you'd want to take into account, but both of these methods for budgeting and forecasting give you a really nice starting point to say, where will I be at the end of 2018? And to look at that, and then to kind of analyze and think through what would I change, what would I want, where in a perfect world would I be at the end of 2018, and then start to identify what's the gap between where I'm headed and where I want to be. It's amazing to me because this is, I think, a very simple thing to put together, but most people don't think this way, and we're stuck looking backwards and don't really have an idea of where we're headed or where we're going. The other point I added here that's really part of the foundational piece, but I bring it up here because it has such an impact on achieving goals and getting to where we want to go, is to start to break out your chart of accounts in as much detail as possible. And it's probably not worded well because you really don't want as much detail as possible because you can have a lot of detail that's completely meaningless, but you do need to have detail. And like if you have partners in the firm, to break out by partner. If you have different practice areas that you're doing, to break out your revenue and your expenses by practice area. The reason why that's important is because when you project out your year, you're going to project out by line item and by practice area. And so what happens is when one is underperforming, you can adjust it. And we're going to talk about that in a second about what these projections do, what this budgeting does, and how you can make adjustments in real time. But if you're just projecting out revenue and expenses, you can make adjustments, or you can see that things are off, or you wish revenue was higher, but you can't really pinpoint what's dragging it down or what the problem is. And so the more detail you can have at the foundational level, the more power you're going to have in the forward-looking projections. But for now, as we're keeping this simple, I want to just really simplify this and think, as of January, I want to have a 12-month forward-looking budget and forecast that are mapping from where I am currently, in reality, where I am, to where I want to be at the end of the year. And to have that mapped out so you can at least see it, and see it on paper, and see what this year could look like, what it's expected to look like, and what would need to happen for this year to go the way you want it to. Because this is going to be a huge clarifying piece for you, and it's going to have power for you even now, but it's going to have way more power throughout the year. So
Yeah,
to
and
continue on with the system,
well,
oh,
Mickey,
go ahead, Chelsea.
I just wanted to jump in and say one thing too, and that's, not just from like an expense perspective or, chart of accounts, but also this ties so well to knowing where you need to be month by month. So if sales were to dip in February and March, you know that right away, and you know that that carryover of a $4,000 shortfall or a $10,000 shortfall 2 months in a row is going to make it harder for you to catch that back up in the middle of the year. So it's seeing these numbers in a regular routine fashion every single month that allow you to head off problems. It brings a level of accountability and a level of responsibility to top of mind, that when you're looking at these things or you're just kind of like maintaining on an ongoing basis, it's easy to let a month pass and then it's 2 months and now a whole quarter's gone by and now I'm 3 months behind where my numbers need to be and expenses are higher than I expected, and now we have a cash flow problem. So it's kind of like, just the marrying the sales and the goal number for what you want to see at the end of the year, and backing that out in a 12-month plan the same way that you will with a budget for expenses and chart of accounts.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and that's kind of segues perfectly into the next section, because what we do is when we break that out and we look forward, like Chelsea said, we're looking at what are we projecting our revenue to be, what are we projecting our expenses to be, and as we identify our goals and as we start to look at what the data is telling us, what we want to do is identify 3 to 5 key drivers, like key metrics in our business that are going to determine whether we're on track or off track. And because like the 80-20 rule says, 80% of the results come from 20% of the action. And so there's certain things in your firm that really are going to determine whether you're succeeding or failing, and those need to be tracked relentlessly. And this is what I'm going to talk about way more in detail next week. The key, what you're going to really look at when you're trying to find these 3 to 5 key drivers, just like Chelsea said, is cash flow. Like, for getting what you want, for getting the firm you want, no matter what your goals are. And I think, of the people on this, the goals you had when you started your firm are all over the map. There's a huge range here. Some want to build a massive practice with a lot of attorneys, a lot of employees. Some want to just stay solo and have this be, something they're passionate about and something they do. And some want to, replace themselves from legal work and be able to do it when they want, but otherwise have actual personal and financial freedom. Everyone has different goals, but everyone's goals are going to really come down to, does your firm produce excess cash flow? And where is the cash flow coming from? And how do you make sure you keep it in the business so that you can use it how you need to? And so that's what we're going to get into in depth next week. But for now, what we're understanding as we project this forward, just from a simple analysis of like what's moving the needle, start to identify what are the 3 to 5 key drivers that are going to make a difference in your firm. And then from there is where we really get to the powerful stuff. So you have forward-looking projections, you have 3 to 5 key drivers, and then what you need to have is real-time accountability. And so building this, budget and building this forecast and having goals for 2018 is a great exercise. But if you do that and just kind of stop there and then go back to life as usual, you're going to forget it, you're going to ignore it, and it's going to be completely meaningless. And so what you have to do is put into place real-time accountability. And this comes from the financial system. So when you build out the budget, understand this right from the start, just so we're all being honest with ourselves. Whatever you put in your budget and whatever you put in your forecast revenue-wise is not going to happen the way it's projected. Like, it's just how it always works is going to be completely different. There's so many things will happen throughout the year that you have no idea about and you can't plan for. But what this does is it gives you an accountability mechanism to track what is happening. Because otherwise, things just happen and you're looking in the rearview mirror. Now we're looking ahead and saying, this is what I want to have happen, so what things can I change or tweak to make sure that it does? And so what are the other key reports you need to have, as Chelsea alluded to before? You need to have your budget and your forecast, And then at a minimum on a monthly basis, you should have budget variance reporting. And so what that means, and this is a very simple report once you've set up the budget, is a report that's showing you in real time what's off and what's on towards your budget and your forecast. What expenses went higher than expected, where was revenue higher or lower than expected. So you're seeing that in real time and can catch things. You not only catch things that you can adjust and things that you can improve, you also catch mistakes. When you actually have this in place and you're watching it, you'll be surprised at how much cash flow that is currently falling through the cracks in your business, how much expense is being wasted on things that don't matter. When you start to dig into this, you're going to be blown away by how much it actually builds your firm and makes you in a healthier, stronger place, keeps things from falling through the cracks, keeps you having peace of mind about what's actually going on, and helps you drive toward the goals that you have. And it doesn't have to be that you're in it day to day, because that's why I said before, it all starts at the top. It all starts with the foundation. When you have bookkeeping, data entry, and autopilot, and we're talking about this in section 3, you as the CEO have your finger on the pulse on these weekly stats, the budget variance reporting, the accountability to your metrics, and you're doing it all without entering data, without being a numbers person, because you're getting these reports delivered to you on a regular basis, and you're tracking those 3 to 5 key drivers. This is the system that allows you to get what you want. And then what you do is you continue to adjust, optimize, and repeat. And so when you first do this budgeting process, like I said, it's going to be completely different than what you anticipated. But what you'll do is you'll learn and you'll adjust and you'll learn and you'll adjust, and then you continue to refine your forecast and refine your projections, and you'll have a much better finger on the pulse of the business so that you can continue to go through the process again and again. And then as you get good at it, you're going to start to look more in 90-day cycles. And so you'll build out your annual, but then you'll kind of quarterly make adjustments and say, okay, this is what happened in the first quarter, here's what I want to have happen in the second quarter. And you'll continue to adjust and continue to build this out. And then when we're having this conversation here, again, if Chelsea will have me back, and I'm doing these webinars at the end of 2018, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I was so dumb last year. I can't wait to build this out for next year and actually have it be meaningful. And I have really big goals for the end of 2000, gosh, what will that be, 19? And I'm going to actually put these things in place to make those happen, because I know how this works. I know how my business works. I know where money flows, and I'm going to actually make it happen. And so that's where the real power comes in, is with the accountability and with the adjusting and optimizing so you can do it. And so my encouragement here as we think about this is to put something in place for next year. Even though it's going to be ugly, even though it's going to be rough, to start, because the power comes with the accountability and with the changing, with the adjusting, and with continuing to do it year after year. You kind of have this compound interest effect on what's going on. So these are our key points for today as we drive to get what we want. Let's assume there's a foundation in place. We want to just recap these pieces here. So foundation is in place. Here's what you need to do now to get what you want and use your financials to drive you there. You need to know where you are now, and you need to know where you want to be. And you can do that at a high level, just being realistic about where things stand. And even if you're just saying revenue and expenses, where am I now, where do I want to be, that's a start. Then you do forward-looking projections. So the bare minimum you should look at is a 12-month budget and cash forecast. And you can do that broken out from the past. So this is what happened last year. This is what I want to have happen next year. Then you look at the 3 to 5 key drivers. What were the things that really moved the needle? What were the things that drove cash flow, that drove profitability, that drove revenue, that I really need to keep an eye on? And then set up your real-time accountability. Have your foundation in place that allows you to receive weekly stats on those key drivers, and have budget variance reporting coming to you every month so that you can stay accountable to what you set out to do. And just a little teaser here. So what you really want to do, and what the kind of crux of this all is, accountability is good, feedback is good, hitting your targets is good, but what you really want to do is drive your cash flow, drive your growth, and drive your profit. And so when you take control of your business, you can actually, these aren't just things that just happen, that you just go through your day and your week and your month and your year, and let's see at the end, was I profitable or not? Or did I drive the cash flow I wanted or not? You can actually take control of it and drive it. And so that's what we're going to talk about next week, is how these three things are really the key, no matter what your goal is, and how they're all found in your numbers, and you can be intentional to make it happen. But in order to do that, you first have to put this in place. You have the foundation first, then this is the financial formula to getting what you want, and then next week, again, a teaser, it'll be really fun, we will talk about how you can actually drive cash flow growth and profit, and how you're probably missing out on a lot of cash flow growth and profit right now with where things stand.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mickey. And now we do have some time for questions. So I'd like to open the floor up to all of our attendees. And we have a couple right off the bat. So I know you had mentioned Xero and QuickBooks earlier, and I just wanted to kind of go back and clarify, if we can, for a second. You know, Kahuna really does a great job of, you know, everybody has different systems. You have like a payment processing system, you have your bank accounts, you have maybe a case management software, maybe you're managing some stuff in Excel, and then you've got, you know, a Xero or a QuickBooks. So is there a, you know, recommended group, or, you know, can people come to you with like that receipts box or shoebox full of receipts and say, you know, help me, I've been doing this on my own for a long time. Can you just, you know, tell us what your ideal situation, or the clients that you work with, where they've started from?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I'm going to skip ahead here so that you can see contact info, because I was going to do a little more, but this took longer than I expected, which is good.
No, it's okay. We have some time. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, actually, I'm good. I was going to just wrap up and say, in leading your business like a CEO, the key is to get that foundation so you're out of the day-to-day, out of the minutia, embrace reality and accountability, and know and review the key metrics. Most of that's going to be covered in detail next week. But I want to invite you to check out kahunaaccounting.com/LexTech and set an appointment with our team. We're not going to just sell you on what we do, even though we can help with everything I've been talking about, but we can help look at where you stand and what you can do to get this type of foundation in place and system in place. But to your question, it's a great question, because I get that a lot, and I think a lot of people are looking for like a magic tool that will solve everything. And I was just talking about this yesterday with an attorney who was really frustrated because they had a practice management system, and they were told, like, this is going to integrate and it's going to work and it's going to be great, and it didn't. It didn't work for them the way that they were told, and so now things are behind, and now they've gone through all this pain, and they're really frustrated at the whole thing. And the way I look at it is, there's not a clean, easy answer as far as tools go. So we use QuickBooks Online and Xero, and we'll use each one depending on the situation. The one thing that we always advise people to do, and I think is more important than anything, is your practice management system, what you are using to work with clients and get your bills to clients, is the most important thing. Like, you as a law firm need to have a system that you really, really like. And we don't have, like, if someone asks us, we'll tell them to check out Clio, check out my case, check out Practice Panther. I know there's a lot of others, but everyone has different experience. And so there's no, like, you've got to use this. Use what works for you. And if you're already in a system that works for you, don't change it, because there's not, as far as accounting goes, it's not going to change anything. And so then we will use Xero or QuickBooks Online based on what integrates, because different ones integrate with others. But that's the most important. Get your bills out, get in the system that you're comfortable with so you can manage your clients. And then the other key is to just have that person or have that team in place that knows how to navigate those. And so, like, for us at Kahuna, it's not really a big deal what practice management system you're using, because we've seen everything. And so then what our role is to, behind the scenes, pull the data from practice management, from the payments, from the payroll, from the bank accounts, so it all happens behind the scenes. That's how we set this up, and I think the best case scenario is that the firm is comfortable with their practice management system, and then they have someone owning the bookkeeping that is confident enough and familiar enough to pull all the data and sync all the data out of the systems and turn that into healthy financial reports. And QuickBooks and Xero both do it really, really well. I think the key is more of who you have in the role to make sure that it's getting done properly.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, next question is, how do you know when it's time to outsource bookkeeping or move financials out, or maybe for some people this might be not outsourcing but bringing someone in full time. And I'd like to take a stab at this one real quick.
Yeah.
For me, the indicator whenever I need to hire staff is when I find myself procrastinating on getting it done. So for me, it's the projects that I say, okay, I'm gonna take some time and I'm gonna do it, tonight after dinner, or I'm gonna set aside a Sunday, or I'll make time on a Tuesday, and then either the end of the day gets around and you're just quite frankly so exhausted, or you've got family stuff, or like there's some kind of an emergency, and it just keeps moving out again and again and again, and before you know it, you're a month behind, but then before you know it, you're 2 months behind. And then you're scrambling to kind of catch up, or just barely, keeping up with the minimum. So for me, it's when I've procrastinated on something, or when I continue to move tasks or punt on them because I'm not excited about it. And it's better for me to ask for the help and to raise my hand and say, hey, like I have a problem, and get it done, because the cost associated with that is so much less than what the catastrophe could be afterwards, and I'll have nobody to blame but myself, because I'm the one who put it off in the first place.
Yeah, the answer I would give to that is, like, I think the only time, I'll go the opposite direction, like the only time not to get it off your plate or get it in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, the only time not to is if you have no clients at all and aren't really sure where the next client is going to come from. If that's your situation, then you need to put all of your energy into getting clients in the door and making sure that you can get the firm off the ground. Outside of that, if you do have clients, you do know how to bring clients through the door. I think everything we've talked about, the amount of money that it costs to have this be a problem is so much more than the cost of getting someone in place. Because we're talking about the headache, the lost money from not knowing what's going on. We're talking about the waste of time internally, which could be billable or could just be for sanity. The amount of cost that there is to have the painful system I described before is gigantic in what it costs the firm. And so if you are in a healthy and viable place, I think this is definitely something. There's no reason to keep struggling that way, because once, like we've shown here, like once you have that foundation in place, you have so many options on what you can actually do and what it can do for your firm in order to kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah, and these are massive motivators. I can speak from personal experience of just finally getting a handle on financial reports and looking forward. Now I'm 10 times more motivated to go after a goal, whether it be from business development or money management perspective, because I know that that's all I need to do is hit that number or maintain a certain level of frugality, and that it's going to domino into all of these other opportunities. So coming from personal experience, it actually helps you get excited and motivated to get out of bed every morning and go in and put in that extra little bit of effort, because you can see where those things are going to add up at the end of the year to be able to do things for your family or take that extra vacation or what have you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree completely. Like, it is way more motivating when you actually have real numbers to look at. And to me, even if I'm falling short, I'd rather know, because I can get my arms around what's actually going on. I think I completely agree. It's very, very motivating.
Absolutely. So I know we're at the end of the hour here, and people have probably got to run. So do you have any closing remarks for us today, or anything that you'd like to share? I encourage everybody who's attended to definitely go and check out the kahunaaccounting.com/LexTech page. the strategy session with their team can be a massive eye-opener, and for some of us, just saying what our numbers are out loud for the first time is like a huge eye-opener, and just like reality check of like, oh my gosh, this is really where I am, and have I been saving for retirement and all of these other things that we so often neglect. So I encourage everybody and college funds and all of that other stuff. So I encourage everybody to make an appointment. Mickey, do you have any last words for us?
No, I'm just adding to that, like on our strategy calls, it's very lighthearted. It's not like going to the dentist or the DMV. Like, you're not going to have to produce bank statements or anything like that. It's going to be more high level, just to understand what's going on in your firm, and just kind of talk through some of these things I talk to here, because it's a webinar for a lot of people, is more general. And so we can actually get into some of the specifics, how it would apply. And I think whether you worked with Kahuna or not, these sessions are extremely valuable and clarifying. So agreed with that. Would love to have you jump on one. And thanks again, Chelsea, for having me on the series. It's a lot of fun to talk through these, and I thank everyone for being a part of it and attending.
Yes, thank you all so much for sharing your hour with us. This session will be available in the library in the learning series. You can go back and watch it. You can share it with your team, share it with a friend who couldn't attend today, and we will get to the next one next week, which is cash flow mastery. Getting off the cash flow roller coaster, which I am personally, grateful for not having to live that crazy reality anymore. So definitely attend and check that out. Mickey, thank you so much. As always, it's been a great time this afternoon, and I look forward to seeing everybody in class again next week.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mickey. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.